Hi everyone and welcome to a new video. In this video I have two early 2015 MacBook Airs and I want to swap the SSD from this one, including the battery, to this one. And the reason for that is that this MacBook Air has 8 gigs of RAM but only a 128 gig SSD, and the battery has been used a lot more than the one I have here. Unfortunately, this one only has 4 gigs of RAM, which becomes really a pain to use today. So I want to take out the 256 gig SSD of this one and a battery which has been used far less and move it into the one with 8 gigs of RAM to make the best machine out of both. So if we have a look, we can see that both of these have a 1.6 GHz dual-core i5 processor. The one on the left has the 8 gigs of RAM, the one on the right has the 4 gigs of RAM. And if you want to know about the battery, we can have a look into the power supply information, and we can see that this one on the left has gone through 326 cycles, which is not that much, but the one on the right has only got 41 cycles, which is much less. So as we can see as well, with the full charging capacity, we here have 5,876 versus 6,700 on the right side. So I want to make sure that I have the best components and put them together into this enclosure, because the easiest would be, of course, to swap that RAM from this one to the other one, but unfortunately this is fixed on the board, so it can be replaced or moved to another machine. The task to go through is not that complicated, only you need to make sure you have the right equipment. For example, the bottom screws on this laptop are of a type pentalobe, so a 5-star form, and they use a 1.2 millimeter version of that. And then the screws that are holding the battery are a Torx T5, which is a bit easier to find, but just make sure you have the right equipment. I have a set here which has all of them, so that makes it very handy to work on these kind of laptops and Apple equipment in general. To get started, we need to shut down the laptops first to make sure that they're completely off. Of course, you need to make sure they're not connected to power, but I guess that's kind of obvious. And then let me get started with the 8 GB one, and I will get the SSD and the battery out. So as I mentioned, for the bottom screws we need to use that pentalobe 1.2 millimeter. So all screws are the same length except for these two screws, they are longer, so make sure you keep track of that. There we go, so now we can open the cover, just like that. Here we see the internals of the MacBook Air. So we have the battery with 4 compartments. We have the SSD, this is the 128 gig model, which will replace by the 256. And here we have the wireless card. So let me start by disconnecting the battery, and as you can see there is a plastic tab here which you can best pull towards the front of the laptop in order to disconnect the battery. There we go. Now I will get the SSD out first. For that I need to use my T5 Torx instead. It's held in place with a single screw, and we can lift this a bit and just pull it out gently. Here we have the SSD, as you can see. Then for the battery, that's held in place with 5 screws, 4 on each side and 1 in the middle. So let me get these out. And don't forget about the middle one. As you can see, there were 3 longer screws, which are here, and then 2 smaller ones towards the edge of the laptop, which is obviously smaller. Easiest way is from the middle on, just lift the battery, and then you can get it off like that. Fortunately, it's not glued to the chest. So there we have it, the disassembled or kind of stripped 8GB laptop. Now I will need to repeat the same steps. So switching again to my pentalobe screwdriver, starting with the 2 larger screws. Disconnect the batteries. So since we have this one laying in front of us, I will just put the battery, which is in a war shape, let's say, towards the model that has only 4 gigs of RAM. And let's put that in nicely and fix it again. Starting with the 2 shorter screws. Next up is the SSD, so I will put the 128 gig SSD in this one. Just push it in, and then we can fix it. There we go. Before I will lock it up, I will connect the battery and test if everything is working. Gently turn it around. So now I'll power on the MacBook and check if it worked to move the battery, at least if it's still giving power, and if it worked to move the SSD. While doing so, I will hold the Alt key, that brings us to the bootloader, because I believe on that 128 gig SSD, I once installed Windows and I don't want to come into troubles because it tries to boot Windows, which is no longer there. It's always good to hear the chime. And we see now that we do have power because we have something on the screen. It's not connected to any connector, and we can see the SSD there, so I can boot from there. And indeed, as I expected, I could also see that Windows partition. So there we go. Taking a look at about this Mac, we can see this is our 4 GB one. It now has a 128 gig SSD, and if you look at the battery, we should see that higher number of battery cycles, 326 indeed. So let me shut it down again and close it up. And then we can move to the other one with 8 gigs of RAM. So important, again, those 2 are the longer screws. First I need to change to my pentalobe, of course. Start with these. So, one laptop done, one to go. Time to test the second laptop. Same thing, I will hold the Alt key. I don't know if this one has this partition or not. One thing you shouldn't forget is to connect the power connector, of course, which I obviously did. Okay, and attempt number 2 to test. Yep, there we go, good sign. So we have power, otherwise we would not see anything on the screen. And obviously we are able to boot macOS. There we go, and if we have a look at about this Mac. We can see the 256 gig SSD, 8 gigs of RAM, and the battery, which is in a better condition. So let me shut this down and then we can close it up. That's it. Second laptop done as well. So we're almost done. The only thing I would recommend to do, it's not strictly necessary, but it's really a good idea. That is to do a PRAM reset. That will help with the boot process. As you could see, I had some issues on this one with the Windows bootloader, which was still there. And it might be a bit slow as well if you swap the SSDs. So to do so, you just hold Command Alt, press the power button, and then quickly hold P and R. And just wait until you hear a second chime. There we go, then you can release the keys. So I'll do the same on this one. If all goes well, it should no longer try to boot Windows. So I'm holding Command Option, press the power button, and then quickly do P and R. There we go, and I can release it. As you can see, it's booting into macOS as we want. So there we are. This machine now, which still has 8 gigs of RAM, now has a 256 gig SSD and a battery which is as good as new. Unfortunately, this one now runs still on 4 gigs of RAM, has a bit of a worse or more used battery and only a 120 gig SSD. Unfortunately, it's not possible to upgrade the memory in these models, and that's a pity because 4 GB really starts to be too slow, not very workable anymore. Even for lighter tasks, it becomes a bit of a pain. So I'm afraid this one I will need to let go, and I can do a few more years with the 8 GB version. Thanks a lot for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please put a thumbs up. If you like this kind of videos or this kind of stuff, don't hesitate to subscribe to my channel for more of the same. Thanks a lot, and I hope to see you back here soon.